meeting, we had a situation that the insurance claim that we sent were denied for some patients. And I said, well, we'll bill the patient then. And the comment was, well, this is lots of work. Is it worth it? I said, well, if it would be your business, I think you would invoice every patient that you saw. So,
right.
I tried to instruct them to own their job, to like this is their money. So, but for the resistance part, I think this is just normal. Every human being is not well prepared for any changes, and the first reaction is to be negative about it.
Right. Well, what you did there was great because you built accountability for the end result or the impact of not doing it by saying if this was your business, right, every penny counts. So owning it and showing the importance of or the impact of not doing it to create that accountability. But you're right, a lot of people will have resistance, and it's showing them a different perspective can help, exactly like you did.
I said something similar to my staff because we recently posted something in regards to cell phones and like a poster of how that can affect their job and that it's not to be used on the time that they're working. And a lot of people are resistant to that memo that was sent. And I said to them, well, if it was your business and you were paying somebody $20, $30, $40 an hour, would you be happy that they are spending their time on your time on their phone or Facebook? And then you saw a couple of faces change and like, yeah, I guess it's true, huh?
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Right. So you help them step into somebody else's shoes and see it from their perspective, which is really helpful, right? So that's when you get the, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. You're right.
No, because they didn't see that way until they, oh, okay, yeah, you know what? Might see it differently then.
Exactly. Good, good. Okay. Anyone else?
That's it. We did the round table.
Okay, great. Thanks for keeping track for me. It's hard to keep track on the phone. So just want to also the next piece was being mindful and aware of our actions and being more conscious of the behaviors and practices we choose. And everybody is going to, we're all at times going to demonstrate, behaviors and practices that feed mediocrity and complacency and of success. And the point of this exercise was just really being more aware of it. Being aware of at times if we're shutting down the discussion or we're being impatient because we're stressed or this person is consistently coming to us with the same issue, and just being aware of our reaction to other people, and also being aware of all of the great things that you do just naturally as leaders. You already are doing so many great things, and we need to take the time to pat ourselves on the back for that. At the same time, need to be aware of those practices that aren't necessarily serving us or our team that we need to improve upon. So without going through, Tuesday I did this, Wednesday I did this, would love to hear just a general sense from each of you of what you learned about yourself. What are the behaviors and practices that you feel really drive success and that are naturally your strengths that you demonstrate, and what are some areas that you've identified that you need to work on?
I can go first.
Okay, great.
One behavior of the wolf of success, there was this day that I completed a task that I was putting aside for weeks. And I think before that, my wolf of mediocrity, I was feeding it because I wasn't doing that damn report,
Right.
So one day I got into the office and I said, that's it, I'm doing it.
Good. So you were procrastinating, right? That's the behavior, right? Yeah.
That's right. There's another time, wolf of mediocrity. I knew I had to go supervise an employee here and there during the day, but my wolf of mediocrity was telling myself, go later.
Right.
You don't have to go now. Go later.
Right.
And I listened to the wolf of and time flies, you know. And I was at the end of the day, I said, damn, I haven't seen that employee today. So
Right.
that's a couple of examples. Once I took a question personally, instead of trying to understand the reason of the question, I felt attacked. So I think the behavior to resolve this is to try to understand the reason of the question better.
That's a good observation. That's a good observation. So you were feeling attacked, and so were defensive, reacted defensively. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, how going forward will you try to understand? Will you ask more questions?
Exactly. Ask some question about the reason of the question, trying to see if the employee really understands what he is asking about, and just trying to listen more.
Good. So do you remember, I can't remember if this was included in the leadership workshop that we had together in the spring, but did I introduce the parent-adult-child model to you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So when we react defensively, we can enter the child reaction, right? And we'll react defensively and take it personally. Whereas the adult will ask those questions. You know, we may feel defensive and feel attacked, but we won't allow those feelings to affect the way in which we respond in the moment. So we may feel defensive, but we will choose to, like you said, Stephen, ask questions and understand and create a dialogue, as opposed to assuming you're attacking me, and so I'm going to be defensive and react to that. So that was a really good example of the difference between reacting in the child mode and responding in the parent mode, and in the adult mode instead. That's great. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Who's next?
I didn't really see that exercise until late, and I was trying to go back on my dates, and I was just pulling a blank. I had a hard time opening it. I just opened it this morning.
Oh, okay, no problem.
I don't know why the link wasn't working at one point. Okay.
Oh.
So, yeah, and there was a link. I never saw that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, maybe I can ask you to keep this in mind and just be, reflective of the behaviors that you're demonstrating and identify some that you can improve, because we all have areas that we need to improve. So, Stephen, you're going to improve your procrastination?
Yeah, just one thing. I've found that it was hard to do this exercise. I'm not a person who feels the wolf of mediocrity a lot, and I found myself, well, I'm not going to write anything because I have to,
Mm-hmm.
No, for sure. Don't write anything just to write something.
And sometimes you do it, you feed the wolf of success, but you don't realize it.
That's right.
Just normal behaviors that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and part of the point of this, and thank you for raising that, is to realize that it's the little things that we do that over time create the culture that we work in, whether it's a high-performance culture or it's a culture of complacency. And it's not just one big act that will create success or one big act that will create mediocrity. It's demonstrating little behaviors over time that create those two things, success or mediocrity. And so when we're more aware, the results that we create in our lives, whether it's at work or in our personal life, are the results of our small actions and habits every day. right? And so I, for example, am a big procrastinator at times, and I need that sense of immediate urgency to get my butt in gear and that stress to do some things. And I have realized that I can't operate in a firefighting mode all the time. It's not the most effective way to work. And so I've had to recognize that, because that will impact my success if I keep doing that. So it's not looking for big things, it's just being mindful of the little things that we do, even in the way that we interact with our colleagues, our team members, whether we're asking ourselves, how am I really engaging and motivating my team members? Am I doing the things that I need to do to make my team members feel good about themselves and about the work that they're doing? Am I delegating enough, right? Or am I carrying too much of the load? So there's, it's about looking at it all and not just maybe the tasks that you're doing that day. So Stephen, your example of the way in which you reacted in a conversation, that's a very good recognition. Not that you react like that all the time, but it's good self-awareness to have for next time. But you're right, don't fill it out just to fill it out. Okay. So let's get back then to time management. So thank you for sharing your observations. And did you all get the handouts that I sent to you today for the time management worksheet?
Yep.
We don't need it right now, but just wanted to make sure. Okay, great. Okay, so time management, right? So a number of you mentioned that time management is a challenge, right? And that in order to spend more time, in order to prioritize the way in which we lead, and in order to prioritize developing your team and those you lead, you need to manage your time more effectively. And so, like budgeting, right, like money, we can spend money on McDonald's, we can spend money on things that we don't need, we can spend money and lose it at, at the casino and have fun, or we can spend time on, or money on investing and practical items. And we can also run out of money. So time is just as valuable a resource as money, and we can waste it or invest in it. And we can also run out of it. So today is really about learning how to use our time wisely and manage the events in our lives or the tasks in our day in a manner that will ensure we're focusing on the right things and spending our time wisely. And really, time management, there's no big secret to time management. It takes prioritizing, it takes consistency, it takes planning and commitment and perseverance. So time management is like creating a new habit, right? You're going to gain some best practices today, but they're only going to work if you use them and you practice them. And just like leading yourself is about being mindful, time management is about being mindful and being aware of whether or not the task you're doing right now is actually important and leading to better results or leading to a goal. So that's what we're going to look at. So I don't know if we really need to go into, the reasons why time management is so important, but I mean, I think it's a little bit of common sense, but I did want to ask you, from your perspective, okay, as opposed to being general, why time management? For you, for each of you in the room right now, why is it so important for you to improve your time management skills?
Because we have such a busy schedule.
I don't have enough time to finish all my work, so I end up working at home or coming in earlier just to get through the projects, it's especially the long-term projects, because the urgent stuff I do at work, but
right.
Then I don't have any time left for the long-term projects.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
But it's about like you were saying. Maybe if you don't have a good time management, then you end up having every task being urgent because your time is not well managed.
Right, right. And so, and we can't manage time, right? So time, we have, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day. We can't change that, right? So we can't actually manage the time, but we can manage our focus and what we choose to spend our time on, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Okay? So obviously, right, people who practice the strategies that I'll be sharing are more productive, get more things done, are less stressed, are better leaders because they'll have more time to focus on the leadership practices of, developing others as well. And they feel more satisfied and better about themselves, right? Stephen, when you actually sat down and did that report that you've been putting off, you felt good about yourself and you glad it was done. I'm assuming.
Yep.
Right? It's like taxes. I hate doing my GST and I put it off, right? And then I get penalized for it, but I feel good when I actually get it done. So, okay. So I want to get into the 5 strategies. Okay, now this isn't going to be any big secret. This is very common sense stuff, but it's often the common sense things that we just don't take time to do that will actually pay off in dividends down the road. Okay, so the very first strategy as far as improving the way in which we use our time so that we're using our time wisely is to first understand and recognize how you are actually spending your time. So, for example, are you spending your time on last-minute deadlines, on unexpected crises, or on things that seem are urgent but aren't important, other people's issues, right? Or are you spending your time on important things that aren't urgent, which is really where you should be spending your time? So the first step is really understanding the way in which you use your time on from a day-to-day basis. And from there, you can determine how to better manage it. So there are 3 different ways to spend time at work, right? You spend time thinking about things, and sometimes that's productive thinking, and sometimes it's unproductive thinking. So we spend our time in conversations, whether in meetings or with our colleagues, and we spend our time on actions, actually taking action and doing work, whether it's completing a report, whether it's doing a performance review. So there's thoughts, conversations, and actions. And then these 3 things can be broken down into basically 4 different quadrants. We have tasks that are urgent or non-urgent, and important or unimportant. So if we want to categorize our time, we can categorize them into the things that we do into one of 4 quadrants. Okay? And this is where I want to spend some time with you today around really understanding where you're spending the bulk of your day. So the first quadrant is urgent and important tasks, okay, whether they're conversations or actions. The second quadrant is not urgent and important. Third, urgent and not important. And fourth, not urgent and not important. Okay, so can you give me some examples of tasks and things that you do in your day-to-day work that would fall under urgent and important? Can you give me some examples of urgent and important things that you spend your time on?
A shipment comes in and it's, we cannot accept it because it's defective. You have to report it to the company within a certain time, or otherwise they won't replace it.
Okay, that's a great example. And so when you have to do that, that takes away from your other work, right? That takes you away. It's an urgent item that needs to be dealt with right away. You cannot put it off, right? Any other examples?
If I can relate to the nursing aspect, sometimes it's our patients. We need to transfer them quickly and efficiently to the right place, and if their life condition deteriorates. So urgent, that would be urgent and important.
Absolutely, right? And there are certain roles like nursing and especially in healthcare, absolutely, that a lot of your work during the day will fall into urgent and important, right?
Yep.
Sorry?
I just said yep.
Yeah. So those are, the quadrant 1 are things that cannot be put off, right? They have to be done right away. So quadrant 2, not urgent and important, where does that, can you give me some examples of things that that would fall into that category?
I have a monthly report which is due the 15th of every month. So I have 2 weeks to prepare that report.
Okay, perfect example. That's right. So you have time to do it. There's planning involved. You've got 2 weeks to do it. And it's important, so it doesn't need to be done right away. But if you left it to the last minute, it would move from quadrant 2 to quadrant 1.
That's right.
Right? So if we're not focused enough on quadrant 2, what happens?
Changes categories.
Yeah, right? And then we spend our days in last-minute mode, in urgent, high adrenaline mode, trying to complete things that we didn't manage effectively or weren't able to do because we had too many crises that we had to deal with. Okay, so quadrant 3, urgent and not important. Can you think of anything there?
I had one I was questioning last week happened. I had a physician that did an OR report and operated on a patient before he left for the holidays, and he had not dictated his report. I wasn't sure if I was going to put it in Q3 or Q4 because it is kind of important for the patient. It is kind of urgent because there's nothing dictated, but I'm not sure if it was like, I didn't know if it was urgent and not important because it is important.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a hard category.
Yeah.
Because most things are important.
Yeah.
If they're urgent.
Okay, good. So most things that come to you are important then, and I think that's a differentiation between healthcare and other industries, right? So a lot of the things that come to you are important. We're dealing with people's lives here at the end of the day. And so maybe there won't be anything to put into quadrant 3 for you. Sometimes, you know, I find that in other industries, for example, there are requests from other departments that I need you to do this urgently for me. And to that person, it's urgent. But to you, it's affecting your timelines and your ability to get your work done. And if we're constantly being asked to support others and take on additional work, and that impacts our ability to get our own job done. So it might be urgent and important for somebody else, but may not fall within your specific job responsibilities. And so with quadrant 3, it's about learning to manage expectations of other people and learning to say no when it's appropriate to say no, so that you're not constantly taking on more and more. So for example, well, no, I think this would fall under urgent and important. When you have a staff member coming to you with a problem, right? You need to do that. She wants you to help her solve right away. Maybe it's an issue with another colleague. We have to determine, is this urgent? It's important, but is it urgent right now? And is this something that I need to solve for this person, or is this something that they can solve on their own?
Okay.
Okay, so it's about delegating, learning to delegate, and learning when to sort of manage expectations and say no, right? So sometimes we can confuse very urgent issues with very important, right? And so there may be a sense of urgency in your employee that's coming to you about this problem, but does it have to be managed right now, right? Or can we take a breath and look at our schedule and say, okay, let's talk about this next week so that I can get this other work done and have more time for you next week, right? So it's about recognizing the importance of this issue right now, and should we be dealing with it right now. Other urgent and not important examples are, phone calls. The phone ringing, and we feel we have to answer it even though we're trying to focus on this report, right? Or an email pops up and we feel that we have to answer it right away, right? We often have this sense of immediacy that we need to respond, or I need to answer this phone even though I've blocked off time right now to finish this. So there really can be distractions that are seemingly urgent but really aren't important at the moment. Okay.
We're just having a hard time hearing a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I think the line is bad.
Yeah.
I'll try and talk more loudly.
That's okay.
So then Q4, not urgent and not important. Does anything fall into that category? So these are, time wasters.
Well, like we said earlier, everything is.
It could be a conversation. I had a conversation with a colleague yesterday on the phone. She was telling me about her problems with staffing, but it's not urgent for me, and doesn't really concern me. So that would be a non-urgent, non-important category.
Yeah, that could be a category. That could be absolutely good example. And I have a hard time with the not urgent and not important category myself sometimes, because for me this category is more about wasting time on Facebook or spending too much time having coffee during the day and chatting and not being productive. When a colleague calls about a problem that they're having that may not be important to you, if you have the time, take the time, right?
Right.
And engage and show that you care and be supportive. So this isn't to say that we can't be doing anything that doesn't fall into quadrant 1 or quadrant 2. This is about recognizing the need to better schedule our time and block time off to get more work done in quadrant 2 so that we're not always operating from quadrant 1. And so when we are able to plan better and get the not urgent but important things done more effectively and aren't leaving them to fall in quadrant 1, then we do have time for the not urgent and not important things, but they're important and urgent to somebody else. You know what I mean? And we can be that good friend and that good colleague. But we do oftentimes need to prioritize our own work first so that we can be productive and then have more time for others. And by that I mean leading and developing and building relationships and all of the softer pieces that are so important that can get lost when we're so focused on the task and getting things done on our to-do list. Okay, so this is just a recap of the four quadrants, right? Quadrant 1 are those emergencies, those last-minute issues, and last-minute deadlines that we've been putting off, Stephen. No, just joking. Q2, this is all about planning and action, right? So we need to schedule our time so that we can get these, that these tasks become the priority. We want to be spending our time in quadrant 2. And less in quadrant 1. But I understand in healthcare that a lot of what you do is going to be in quadrant 1. And those are things that are beyond your control. Okay, and we want to spend less time in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. But not urgent and important can also be coaching, and when your staff comes to you with a problem, instead of taking it on yourself, having a coaching conversation. Okay? It's not urgent, but it is important to help them to learn how to solve problems on their own. So we went through that I-GROW model, and the I-GROW model is something that you can use in those types of situations when somebody comes to you with a seemingly urgent issue, but really you can turn it into a not urgent but important thing by coaching them through it so that they can manage it for themselves. So I'd like you to just think about your day-to-day and identify, you know, where you spent most of your time. Did you spend most of your time doing things in Q1, Q2, Q3, or Q4?
Q2 for me.
Q2?
Q2 for me also.
Q1.
Yeah.
I guess.
Q2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. So so what I'm sensing then is it's not about wasting time. It's about having too many projects on your plate to plan and take action on, and having to deal with last-minute emergencies. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So given that, okay, so you know how you spend your time. What things can you do then? So you know you've got a lot of projects on the go. You know you're already operating from quadrant 2. What steps can you then take then? So I'd like you to have a little discussion, maybe in pairs or groups. How many of you are there right now? Sorry?
4.
4. Okay, so in pairs, brainstorm a little bit. Now that you know you operate in Q2 for the most part, and some of you also in Q1, what steps can you take to better manage the number of projects that you have so that you're not working late at night?
Okay.
De tomber au moins 10. Oui, bien. Et puis, un petit peu cet exercice-là, mais le faire de laquelle il avait fait, comme garde, moi je l'avais fait là. Avant que je la vois. OK. Moi, c'est ça, ça a été super. Ben, je l'ai pas fini parce que je figurais qu'on allait faire, tu sais, qu'on a des... Oui, le téléphone, on est déjà ah, il faut que je le sais que ces affaires, tu t'en regardes bien avec les balances. Oui, mais qu'est-ce que tu fais avec ça? C'est ça. Les familles, les familles, ça c'est toutes des c'était pas urgent. C'est sûr, c'est important pareil. C'est important, moi, c'est important avoir des OK, mais avoir des c'est important. Il faudrait que je vois ça là. Oui, c'est ça. Mais
Moi, je me souviens des reminders dans mon calendrier. Souvent, là, comme je fais quelque chose, je vais aller me mettre 2 jours d'avance, quelque chose que je pense que ça va la semaine prochaine.
Ça va commencer à presser, parce qu'on est rendu au milieu mai. Puis là, il va tomber, il fit, là. C'est ça. Qu'on a fait de vous emmener là, mais qu'est-ce qu'on fait pour les là? Justement. Ouais. Ouais, ben, moi, j'étais dans le Q1 le matin. Travailler dans le laboratoire. Puis,
C'est plus mêlant, là.
ouais, c'est mêlant.
Pareil, comme la, tu sais, comme...
Ouais, ben, c'est ça,
les manager,
je siège aussi, moi, c'est avec Linda, là. Ça, c'est
dans un de mes goals, ça, puis je pense que...
C'est assez de pas rien avoir dans un, mais... C'est moi qui à la fin de ça, il faut que je lâche tout ce que je fais, puis...
Tu fais les 2 jobs, mais ça marche pas, là.
Moi, de mon côté, tu vois, je suis censée être 50% sur le banc, puis 50% manager. Mais quand je travaille sur le banc, ça dépasse tout le temps mon temps.
Ouais, moi aussi, c'est pour des choses.
Je pense qu'il va falloir que je mette mon pied à terre, puis je leur dis, écoutez, moi, après telle heure, je m'en... Mais là, ils vont me dire, ben, je ne travaille pas comme manager avant de partir, par exemple. Là.
C'est ça.
Je peux voir ça venir. Mais je pense qu'il va falloir que je leur dise, non, ça arrive trop souvent. Je le vois l'après-midi, Moi, bon, mais c'est ça. Je m'en vais dans mon bureau puis je me dépêche. Puis eux autres, ben, ça va bien. C'est presque tout fini. Ça ralentit. Ça fait que je pense que ça va être ça ma solution.
Puis quand tu tombes plus dans ton rôle de manager, viens te voir pour des questions de l'autre bord.
Oui.
Et la personne ressource.
Oui, c'est ça.
C'est bien beau que c'est sur ton temps, mais là,
mais ça fait ça me dérange pas. C'est comme ça, je trouve que
ça me dérange pas, mais ça me dérange pareil.
Oui,
parce que là, faut tout faire rapide, faut tout faire comme...
Plus ils vont en faire tout seul, plus ils vont venir là-dessus.
Mais c'est parce qu'on a tout le temps des exceptions, puis nous autres, on a plein d'exceptions ici, faut pas t'oublier. OK? Fait qu'ils viennent qu'ils le savent. Ils veulent plus prendre de décision. Moi, mon staff veut plus prendre de décision à cause de ça. Parce qu'une journée, on dit ça, le lendemain, c'est plus ça. Ça fait qu'ils veulent pas devenir...
interrupt, sorry.
Yeah.
So it was hard for me to follow, mostly because I don't speak French very well.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. Don't apologize. So fill me in. What were some of the things that you were talking about?
Well, I think like myself and Susie, we both work on the bench with our coworkers as equals, and then we have to work as manager. In my case, I think I try to do too much on the bench to make sure that I don't leave work behind for them, and I should, my job description is it should be 50-50, and I'm going to have to put my foot down and say, okay, whatever is left by me at that time, you will have to finish so that I can spend more time on the management side.
Okay, good. So more delegating.
Yes.
So what do you think has been preventing you from doing that then before?
It's just, it's always harder for someone to pick up the work behind that has already been initiated by another person. So you just like to leave a clean plate behind before you leave so that, I don't know, it's just not feeling guilty about not finishing your work.
So how can you lessen that guilt? Because I understand that. I understand, you don't want to leave anything behind, and you want to, be a good example and get the work done and not leave it for anybody else. But so a couple of questions. First, what are the advantages to, like you said, putting your foot down and delegating it and leaving it for other people? What are the benefits of that?
Well, definitely I'll have more time to do my management work, so it's beneficial for me, and I think I'll do a better job, which will reflect on the whole lab too. They'll probably find me, I don't know, less trying to running with a headless chicken sometime, because I'm trying to do everything on both sides at the same time.
Right, right. So it's hard sometimes to move out of the, like you said, working on the bench with colleagues and wearing both hats, right? So wanting to have your hands in things and being involved in doing that piece, and then transitioning over to leader. And you're right, it should be more 50-50. You'll also, how do you think it would be a benefit to your team members? There's a lot of benefit to you. You'll be able to, get more of your management work done, like you said. How would it be a benefit to your team members if you were to have more of a 50-50 balance?
Well, I'll probably won't come as often at the last minute and delegate something to them and tell them, oh, I forgot to give you this 2 days ago. I need this tomorrow, So,
right.
Yeah, I think they would appreciate that.
And so how can you feel, do you think you'll feel guilty about this? How can you feel less guilty about moving more to 50-50?
It's the guilt comes from, you're doing a batch of tests and not finishing that batch. That's where the guilt comes from. I think it's something I'm going to have to get used to, and maybe I'll have to talk to my staff and ask them, how can we develop a transition so that it's not too difficult for them to take over from me. I think
good.
Talking to my staff will be the best way to make things work right.
Absolutely, right? So clarifying the expectation that, you've recognized this, running around like a chicken with your head cut off, I think is what you said, that, in order to make everybody's lives more productive or easier, that you want to move to this model, to this, to being able to manage things more effectively. And so asking them how you can transition these things better. So I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Elise. That's great. Any other thoughts on what you can do to better manage the projects that you have on the go and your responsibilities?
We were saying we put a lot of stuff in our calendars, like a reminder before the due date, so maybe a week or two before, so that you're aware that it is due at a certain time, so that you have time to prepare yourself if you haven't yet completed it.
Absolutely. Reminders in your calendar are a great idea. Okay. Scheduling time, so scheduling yourself into a meeting so that that time is blocked off to do this project. So reminders are key. Sorry?
Delegate.
Delegate, absolutely. That's huge. And so we're going to go into looking at priorities in a minute, and then from there identifying what tasks within those priorities, those projects that you have on the go, can you delegate to other people. Okay, similar to what Elise was saying. Any other ideas?
No.
And I know it's often hard to delegate because we think, well, there's going to I have to take time now to teach them and to explain to them how they're going to do it. But the more that we have, a few people within our team or even one person that we can delegate to, and even just delegating small things at first, what's the benefit overall if we take time up front to teach and to coach? We're taking time from our schedule to do that. And it may not be done as well as we do it. It may be done differently, but what are the benefits there to delegating?
You will have more time later on for yourself.
Right. You will have more time. What are some other benefits?
You'll always have a backup in case something happens.
You'll have a backup. That's right.
If you delegate, other people understand better where you're coming from. So they might be more forgiving if you do something they don't quite agree with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a good point. They'll be more understanding. They understand the work that you're doing, the perspective, the reasons why. Also, when we delegate, you're building leadership within your team, right? So I believe that everybody within an organization is a leader, right? You may not have a leadership title, you may not be managing other people, but we all need to take part in the forward movement of our team and supporting our team. And by delegating and showing that you have confidence, so delegating isn't just about dumping work on somebody else, right? Delegating is about showing somebody else that you have confidence in their ability and need their help to do something, right? That you value their contributions and are turning to them for that reason to support this project. And so it's also the way in which you delegate that promotes leadership, that promotes growth and learning. And it also results in a more engaged workforce. It promotes a healthier climate. When your boss delegates to you in a way that, tells you that they value your perspective and your help and your expertise, that makes you feel good. And you become more accountable. You become more engaged and committed. And that helps the overall health of your team. So delegation is a really important skill and practice for exceptional leaders. It's something that you learn to do over time and you become more comfortable with over time, letting go of some control. That's something that I've had to learn how to do. I'm not very good at it yet, but I'm learning because there is this letting go of control, and they're not going to do it as well as I do it, and it's just easier for me to do it. But really, at the end, it pays off in dividends. So, any questions or comments about that?
No.
Okay. So once you know how you spend your time, the next piece is really identifying your priorities. What are the priorities that should be falling in quadrant 2? Right, so quadrant 1 are emergencies with patients or unexpected crises like a shipment that's being delivered that's not correct and you have to deal with it right away. But what are your priorities within your role? What are those projects, what are those responsibilities that you have that need to take priority? And when I say priority, I don't just mean those projects or reports that need to get done, but think about your priorities also as a leader in your management role. So what are priorities that affect the health of your team? You know, the climate, your team's effectiveness. Our priorities around coaching and performance management and providing feedback. So those types of priorities as well. So I want you so a best practice is, you know, on Monday morning, schedule a half an hour from, you know, the first half an hour of your day and ask yourself, what are my priorities and what do I need to focus on this week? And then you schedule your week around those priorities. So just take a minute right now and think about what are those tasks or responsibilities within your own role that must take priority right now over the coming weeks. And just list them in front of you. So who would like to share? I'd love a couple people or one person even, to share priorities that you've identified that should really remain and be the quadrant 2 priorities, but might fall into quadrant 1 as well.
I have my quarter 1 submission that I have to submit to CIHI. It's due for the end of August, and I have to submit the months of April, May, and June.
Okay, great. So are those are 2 different reports?
Yeah, we have one for the inpatients and one for the visits and emergency.
Okay, great.
So
they're
all charts that have to be coded and abstracted and then submitted.
Okay. Okay, so those are those monthlies? Do you need to do these every month?
We have to do them every month, but we have at the end of the quarter one for the 3 months, we have to submit it, and then after the date of end of August, it's going to be closed.
Okay.
It needs to be corrected and everything. Like for the inpatients, it's all done, but for the emergency visits, we're maybe middle of May, so I still have a month and a half that we need to code an abstract.
Okay.
At the end of the month. So it's going to be a priority for sure in the next weeks.
Okay, great. So it'll be a priority in the next week. Will it still be a quadrant 2 priority, or will it have moved to a quadrant 1? Will it be a last-minute rush?
For the first 2 weeks, the next 2 weeks, it's going to be in quadrant 2, but then after it's going to fall in quadrant 1 for sure.
Okay, so you want to plan to have that done before it falls into quadrant 1,
yes.
if you can.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. So those are specific tasks and that need to get done and are, clearly very important priorities that need to get done. What are some other priorities as a leader leading your team that should be on that list?
Well, I actually put this on my schedule. I did my staff performance appraisal last May.
Okay.
And I scheduled, I think it's going to pop up in August, just go over with them and informally ask them how they're doing with their personal improvement goals.
Okay, good. Okay, that's an example. That's excellent. That's a very good example of important but not urgent, right?
Mm-hmm.
It becomes urgent and important when you see somebody who is behaving very disrespectfully or is not performing at a level that they need to be or interacting poorly with a patient, that you need to react in that moment to provide feedback. But when you're being proactive and following up and giving feedback, then it prevents the Q1 emergencies where we have to suddenly deal with this behavior because we haven't been dealing with it before or managing the performance of this individual. So that's great. That's great. Okay. Any other priorities that you all identified?
Well, we have the accreditation coming up, so there's a lot of work to be done there.
Okay, good. Okay, so it's really important whether you do it each week or even on a monthly at the beginning of every month to say, okay, here are my priorities from a task perspective, so whether they're reports or performance, management conversations, these are the tasks. And then also ask yourself as a leader, what do my team members need from me? Right? So part of the reason that we want to better manage our tasks so that we can have time to engage with our team members, to do some team building and team meetings, to coach, to delegate, right? So that we have time to do that. And so ask yourself when you're setting your priorities, what does my team need from me this month? Do they need me to spend more time explaining why this change is happening? Do I need to take more time to have one-on-one conversations with my team members so that they're on side with this change? So ask yourself what your team needs from you, given what is happening in the environment during that month, perhaps. And then make those some priorities as well. So obviously, once you set your priorities, then the next piece is planning around them and taking action. So you had some really great ideas about reminders, okay? Certainly scheduling reminders in your calendar so that it pops up and says, don't forget that this is going to be due in 2 weeks. What I'd like to suggest that you start to practice, and this is, again, you need to develop your own time management approach that you can stay on top of, but this is one way of doing it. So once you set your priorities at the beginning of the week or at the beginning of the month, okay, let's assume you're doing it weekly. So on a Monday morning, you're looking at the priorities for the week. Each morning, identify the 2 most important tasks that need to be completed. Okay, so what do I need to do first thing this morning in order to get one step closer to completing these projects for example. So from Q2, what do I need to do this morning? Okay, or better yet, at the end of the day, the night before, think about what needs to get done the next day and schedule it. Because oftentimes what happens is we get to work in the morning and then we are frantic and get called away on an emergency, and then the rest of our day can go, out the window because we haven't had time to really reflect on what do I need to do today. Then we operate sort of in firefighting mode. So if you're able to, the night before, ask yourself, what are the 2 or 3 things that have to get done tomorrow morning or tomorrow period? Regardless if I get pulled away during the day, I can come back and do them. So being very clear on what needs to get done that day. Then I would recommend, if you can, regularly blocking yourself in a meeting. Okay, so this is my time that I'm going to spend. Maybe it's not every day that you're blocking time, but this is time that I'm going to spend on my planning and actually doing these reports. And it's just time that I'm dedicating for myself so that I can get them done without distractions. I'm not going to answer the phone unless I'm being paged and it's an emergency. I'm in a meeting right now, and my meeting is to get these priority items done. For me, the best time to do that is in the morning so that they're off my plate to a certain degree, but that might be different for all of you. Also, recognize the tasks that you're putting off because you just don't like doing them, right? For me, it's anything to do with accounting and
administration.
Sorry, Stephen. And sort of administrative things, right, that have to get done, but I don't find really contributes to my own enjoyment or my own motivation, or but they need their necessities, right? And those are the things I put off, and I've recognized those. So identify the things that you're putting off because either they're outside of your comfort zone. Sometimes we don't sit down and have difficult conversations with team members because it's outside of our comfort zones. But if we don't do that, then it will become urgent and important because it leads to conflict and issues within the team. So be honest about what needs to get done, and then just do it. This is common sense. Remove distractions. Okay. Turn off your phone or send it to voicemail when you need to get things done. I shut down my email. I turn off my email so that I don't see emails coming in because I have this need to respond to people right away. And then it takes me away from the things that I actually need to get done right now. So I turn off my email. And then at the end of the day, review what you did and how far did you get on your priorities? What did you achieve that day? And recognize yourself for that, and then set your priority tasks for the next day. So I urge you to, at the start of the day and at the end of the day, identify what needs to get done, do your best to do it, don't be too hard on yourself, and then reflect at the end, what did I actually get done, and what do I need to do tomorrow? And just be consistent around delegating what you can and doing what you can. The next piece is really just about being mindful. So is what I'm doing right now important? And asking yourself that question, is what I'm doing right now important? Or are there other things that must take more priority over this? Okay? Because sometimes urgency doesn't necessarily mean it's important and needs to get done right now. Okay, and we talked a lot about, a little bit about delegating, okay? So I'd love for you to think over the next, so the homework that I had given you, I don't think is going to be relevant for you because you have a really good handle already on where you spend your time. It's pretty much Q1 and Q2. I think I heard that pretty clearly. So instead, I would love for you over the next week or two to really look at how you can delegate more to other people, so that A, you free up your own time to focus on your projects that may be piling up and you feel maybe overwhelmed, and B, so that you can develop greater leadership skills and greater engagement within your team. So think about who you might be able to delegate to, what you might be able to delegate, and how you can do that. So when we talk about delegating, it's not, like I said, just about, you know, taking work off your shoulders and dumping it on somebody else. It's about letting them know that you need their help and you value their expertise, and that you hope they'd be able to help you with this project. So managing those expectations as far as why you're asking them to do it. So do you think that that would be a reasonable exercise to give some thought as to how you might delegate one or two things to other people over the next couple of weeks to better manage your time?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. So overall, the first thing is being mindful of how you're spending your time, right? And regularly asking yourself, is what I'm doing right now important? And should I be spending my time doing this, or are there other things that I should be doing right now? Prioritizing, and first, it's called first things first, right? So do your best to get the most important things done right away. Plan on how you're going to do that, and delegate when you can. So as a next step, identifying somebody, one or two people that you would feel comfortable delegating to, and identifying what you're going to do that, how you're going to do that. Okay. Questions, comments?
Not for me.
No.
No.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, I am going to be sending you each an email tonight or first thing in the morning about scheduling some coaching sessions, and so that we can, you each have 4 30-minute coaching sessions so that we can get started on those as we move through the program.
Perfect.
Okay? Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Téléphone.